part 1 is on our YouTube channel. I'm not going to go as in depth as I did with part 1 because we're going into part 2, but I'll kind of just recap it really quick. Okay, so I'm going to make it really like this. I'm so used to singing like this, that's why, probably. It's probably better. Is it better? Okay. See, when you sing, you have to hold it like this. You can't hold it like this. Okay, so I want to make this really clear. So when I'm talking about like communication styles, this is what motivates you. This is the motivation behind it. Why you communicate to the world. Now, I'm not just talking about words. I'm talking about how you respond to your world. That's kind of why we went into the worldview. That's why we talked about, how people pick up these things. So this is your motivation language. So some people are, like we learned, sapphires are motivated by fun. Rubies are motivated by a challenge. Pearls are motivated by people, and mainly because they like to help people. And emeralds are motivated by information. And what I mean by that is when we talk about emeralds is that they don't actually move to something unless they have all the information. They won't make a decision about anything unless they have all the information. So if you're not exactly like that, then that's probably not your main motivation style. So we all have two, usually. One is usually stronger than the others. And this is in reference to they're all connected with these grace gifts. And we'll kind of go over all that stuff. And you'll realize when God said that some have a bigger portion than others. This is why. He's created you to motivate you in a direction to work in the body and function in a way. Some people are better at other things because that's the way he created you. Now, that doesn't mean you can't learn all the other gifts or have all these other attributes of God, because when we get to be more like him, those things naturally come out. But those are learned abilities. Those are disciplines. That's why we disciple, so that we can look and be more like him. So, Amen. So, okay. So I'm going to just go over it really quick. So the Seguin, which is the sapphires, they think outside of the box. They're very creative. They love to invent new ideas, but have a hard time getting from point A to Z. They need help doing that kind of stuff. And then they don't really want to continue or maintain it. They want to build it up, have the ideas, and then give it away.
That's right.
You are a sapphire.
Yeah. All right. Now, pearls, on the other hand, they're very systematic and they're excellent at getting to point A to point Z. Now, if you have a hard time as getting from point A to, like, you can be like, okay, like this is next and then this is next. And if that's not you, it's probably not your strong point, or no, it's just not your strong point. But sometimes this is a learned ability, so we'll get into all that stuff. But, okay, so what I want people to understand is that those who are sapphires need to understand that pearls are here to help. But they have to ask, I'm like in the wrong spot. This is not pearls. I'm sorry. We're talking about emeralds. Emeralds are systematic. Sorry, that was my fault. Emeralds are very systematic, and they're excellent at getting from point A to point Z. Those are your emeralds. Those are your people who are motivated by information. They like schedules. They like checklists. They love checklists, actually. Like, they'll create one every single day, checklist. And the sapphires need the emeralds. And I think what happens with, I'll say this, if you're a mature Christian and you're a mature sapphire Christian and you're going to be working with an emerald, and we'll just say they're a mature emerald, you're not going to be offended that they're asking you tons of questions. The reason why they're asking you tons of questions is so that they can help you. Remember, they need all the information so that they can best help you, because they don't do anything that isn't good. And then that's true. They won't put out shoddy work. They will give you your all. They aren't going to commit to something that they can't commit to. That's a sapphire. So sapphires will commit and rubies will commit, and then they'll burn out and they'll be like, well, it wasn't challenging anymore. It's no more fun, so I'm out. Peace. But not emeralds and not pearls. Actually, sometimes with pearls, they're loyal to a fault. And then they keep getting beat up over and over and over again because they have a hard time saying no. Whereas, so as you can see, now that's there's the extrovert and the introvert, right? So committed, the introverts, the extroverts, they don't really care. And you know why? Because they don't really care what people think about them. But introvert people really do care. They really care what people think about them. Now, if you've been injured or traumatized or harmed or in some type of way as a ruby or a sapphire, and you have felt rejected and abandoned, then you might care what people think. So there's brokenness and woundingness that we respond out of. Now think, if you didn't have any brokenness or if you didn't have any woundedness, how brightly you would shine as the gem that God created you to be. So it's really important that we clean those things up. Okay? I know, right? Shiny, shiny, shiny. Okay. So even though emeralds and rubies are sapphires and emeralds are very, very different. They're completely opposite. Emotional extrovert and logical introvert. But you guys actually were made to work together. That's how God created the body, to knit and fit together. We need each other. And sometimes it's this, because you guys don't speak the same language. You're not motivated by the same things. They love rules. You hate rules. Sapphires believe that rules were made to be broken. And as a matter of fact, in high school, I was the first one to figure out that you didn't need so many math credits to graduate. So I just dropped a math class and took extra long period during my senior year. I also thought that I would be smarter and more creative in my English class if I got to do all my work outside. So I convinced my teacher that that's how I needed to work. They don't follow the rules. And if you're smart and very loving and joyful, they just hand it over. It's kind of amazing. But think about how that would work in the kingdom of God. Is somebody stuck in a rule? Is somebody stuck in something that they feel trapped in, like they have to do this? Right? Sapphires, you're like the perfect people to help them break out of that. Freedom, right? I mean, sapphires are like your wild child. They were those ones that were running in the fields and burning the bras. You know what I'm saying? In the 70s or the 60s, you know? You know, like before it was like, oh, no, you know, like you need those. It was a sin, you know, and they're like, no, and they're burning them, you know. You'll see most sapphires, they won't wear masks right now. Why? Because it's a rule, and you're telling them they have to do it, and they don't like it. It's not fun. They can't wear lipstick. They can't wear makeup. You know, they can't, you know, show off their cool little beard that they created. It doesn't make sense to them. I mean, I'm literally getting my hair cut, and there's a sapphire guy who's cutting hair at the salon, and he has this really nice beard, and he keeps taking his mask off every 5 minutes to put some stuff on it because the mask keeps getting stuck in his beard and it's messing up his beard. They don't like it. They don't like rules. They don't like being confined. They are the perfect people to lead people into freedom. Right? Break out. Break out. Because that's where the enemy wants to keep you, is in bondage. That's his goal. Bondage. One of my favorite quotes, Donald Miller, Blue Like Jazz, who wrote the book Blue Like Jazz, he said, "The greatest trick the devil ever played wasn't convincing man that he didn't exist. It was getting man stuck into habit so that he would never engage God." Think about where your habits are and what you're doing. Okay, let's move on to the pearls and the rubies. Okay, so rubies, they dream bigger than any other personality. They start nonprofits, businesses, but they tend to burn out because they don't ask for help. Because why not? We can just do it. I don't need anybody's help. I'm just going to get it done. Actually, it's kind of funny. I was doing this, my dad, my parents are doing this stone, like, what would you call that? Like, retaining wall. And when I'm working, my Ruby is like in full force. I just want people to just get it done, and I just want to get it done now. Now, if they are taking their time and asking lots of questions, it's annoying to me, and I'm like, just move, I'll do it. That's how Rubies are. They just want to get it done. They don't want to explain it to you on how to do it. They just want to get it done. And it's not because they don't like you. They just they just want to get it done and move on to the next thing. Especially if it's not, I mean, depending on where they fall. If they're a Ruby Sapphire, maybe it's because it's not fun teaching you. I don't know. Maybe you're a hard person to teach. I'm not sure. If it's a Ruby Emerald, well, just good luck, because there's no point. You're never going to be good enough as they are to get it done, and that's just how it is. That's the way God created him. I don't know. You have to ask God on why he did that. He just did it. And there's a reason for it, though. Okay. So, pearls, they love to be wrapped around a cause that's bigger than themselves. They keep companies going. They're the reason customers keep coming back, actually. People love pearls. You know why? Because they're great listeners. They have a natural gift of empathy. It's just in them. And you know why? Because they don't like to be judged. Because they judge themselves harshly. Over and over and over and over and over. It's like, for someone who's not a pearl, I find it's very exhausting. And I love my pearl friends because obviously they're really good friends. If you are stuck in another state and you would call your pearl friend, they would drive to come pick you up. It's true. She's laughing because it's true. They would do it. If they couldn't do it, they would find someone to do it for them. They just want to help. That's their love language. That's their gift. That's the way that God made them. But think about it. Isn't Jesus like that?
He's like all those things.
No, I know, but in that aspect of that stuff, but like you can call on Jesus and he's going to help you. And he's going to find some way to help you. He's going to bring somebody in. He's going to change the circumstance, right? It's beautiful. And you know what? Sometimes people just need to talk about stuff, right? As soon as they confess with their mouth, right? They'll be set free. They're natural born counselors. They just are. Now, that doesn't mean that they have great wisdom to always give. I don't know if they do. Some may, some might, some won't. I don't know. But the point is that not everybody needs the wisdom. They just need to be listened to. When I started counseling in 2015, I realized that most of it was just listening. And then asking people open-ended questions, because really, the answer is already inside of them. You know why? Because he lives inside of you. So it just takes someone to ask a couple of questions for you to start digging in there to figure out, I never thought about asking that question before. One of the funnest things to do in inner healing is when somebody, will say, and they'll like say all this stuff, and then I'll be like, so what did Jesus say when you asked him about that? Well, I didn't ask him. Well, why not? Well, I don't know. Well, let's start asking questions then. You're just teaching people how to build relationship, which they're great at. They have friends for decades and decades and decades and decades and decades and decades. They get together and they hang out. And they just are so kind. Okay, so rubies are challenge-driven, they expect everyone to run at their pace, which is not possible, trust me. So I my life is pretty all over the place. I have lots of stuff going on. I'm always busy. I'm always working. I'm always doing something. If I'm not having a lunch, if I'm not like meeting with friends for lunch, or my schedule is always booked. I met a gal in my office who is more of a bigger Ruby than I am. I can't even believe the schedule she keeps. I look at her and I go, "You're crazy." I would never expect someone to run at my pace. She would never expect someone to run at her pace. She runs it because she's challenge driven, and she wants to win all the awards for real estate. It's true. She wants to be the top earner. She wants to get the trophies that you get from our company. You know, it's her thing. She loves it. She's a full-blown Ruby. And she still helps her friends. She works from she gets up at 5 a.m. and then sometimes doesn't go home till 11 p.m. And she's working. It's insane. And she loves it. She's so happy. But just because it doesn't make you happy doesn't mean it's not gonna make somebody else happy, right? So I think the biggest thing that Rubies have to grow up in or mature in is realizing that nobody's gonna run at your pace. Don't expect them to, which is one of the issues that I had when I was a manager, teaching people how to do visual merchandising. And I remember I'd get so frustrated with my employees, and then I would call my mom and I'd be like, and she's like, not everybody has that natural gift that you do. And this was before I knew a lot of this stuff. And I was like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Maybe I should back off a little bit. I expected excellence and you to do it exactly like I would do it and run at my pace. And then I had to learn that that's not possible. Also, Rubies have to learn how to not, actually everybody needs to learn to not take advantage of the Pearl's loyalty. It's so wrong. This is what I do. I ask questions. Well, how does that make you feel? Is that something that you want to do? Because if you don't want to do it, I'm releasing you. I'll find somebody else and it's not going to hurt my feelings. I say that to them all the time. Because the thing is, if I don't tell them it's not going to hurt my feelings, then they're going to send me a text later and go, did it hurt your feelings that I wasn't able to do that? I know you gave me an out, but they'll still ask.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, you're released, so release them. And they're totally fine, but they will be loyal to a fault. Just be careful. So, okay. Oh, also with pearls, I've noticed this as a Ruby. So I think this is, I think this is more of a extrovert and introvert thing. Could be. No, this is a, no, not extrovert, introvert. This is your, yes. This is your emotional versus logical. So your emotional people, as logicals, please be careful with your tone and your quick and direct talk. It's very abrupt to them, and it makes them feel bad.
Wait, who, Ruby?
So your extrovert, I'm sorry, brain, I need you to work. Your logicals are rubies and emeralds, and you can kind of see on the sides there. Okay, so that is that. That is your, maybe if I look at it, then I won't forget. If I looked at my opening. So your logical side is your rubies and your emeralds. They are, they're very direct. You know why? Because they don't want to hear the whole story. But your emotionals want to tell you the whole story. And I find myself, can we bullet point this? and they're like, no, I'm getting to it, I promise. And then they keep talking about the story, and you're like, but we're still in the same place. It isn't going any faster. And it's usually like if I'm pressed for time and I have to go somewhere, and they're like, I just want to tell you this one thing, this one story. And you're like, can it be quick? Yes, I'll be really quick. Okay, great. So this one time when I was getting out of my car, and then I noticed that my dog was over on the hill. What does that have to do with the story? And so a lot of times what I've found is that my tone And my direct, quick talk can be very offensive to emotional people. So as a logical, I try to be gracious about that. You know, I'm really on a time crunch. Could you either email it to me, or maybe we can have this conversation at a later time, because I love your stories, but I just don't have time to hear the whole thing right now, and I don't want you to cut it short. I want to hear the whole thing. That would make them feel so good, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to cut it short. Your stories are so important to me. I don't want to cut it short. Let's have this conversation when I have more time, because it means so much to me. That right there says everything to an emotional.
And respect.
It is very respectful, because you're respecting their feelings. They want to tell you the whole story. Just because I don't want to hear the whole story doesn't mean I shouldn't be nice about it.
But isn't that the emotional place, like, they should grow up a little bit in that area?
Well, it's not growing up, it's,
Like maturing?
So emotional people, God created them that way. They're very connected to their emotions. There's a reason why they have to tell the whole story. Maybe at some point in time they'll emotional, and sometimes. Why do you feel like sometimes that they have to tell the whole story? If they leave out a detail, it's like they can't. What do you think that is?
Have to be perfect.
it's part of what I value.
There you go.
I value the whole story.
They value the whole story. It's important to them.
And it's actually very common for a logical to think that the emotionals, when they grow up, when they mature, they'll be more logical. But it's who we are.
Yeah.
So as
Yeah.
an emotional, I have to learn to respect the logical, that they don't want to hear all of the stuff. So I talk to emotional. I talk to somebody who likes the story.
Yeah.
But then you have to learn to grow up a little bit too.
I think the growing up part is the maturity of saying, I'm okay listening to your whole story. And their part is that they have to be okay with, that maybe not in my time frame they can hear my whole story. Or as an emotional say, okay, it is short, how can I shorten this? Sometimes they can't shorten it. It's not a maturity thing.
It's an identity.
It's how God created you. You're connected to your emotions. You're connected to this value system that, let's just put it this way. Let's just get rid of the emotionals. You got no books to read. You got no movies to watch. How do you feel about that now? They're your storytellers.
Yeah.
They're your storytellers. You watch TV, you watch movies. Guess who's writing those things?
I thought sapphires were writing.
They're emotional. Sapphires and pearls are emotionals. Sapphires are highly creative. They are storytellers, just like pearls are. Sapphires just tend to do it in a more happy, fun, go lucky way. They do. They tell the story. So it's not a bad thing that they're telling the stories. I mean, I read books all the time. Like creative books, like series, like who came up with Jurassic Park? Not illogical. You know what I'm saying? That was an emotional person who thought of a concept and put identity and feeling in it. Nobody wants to watch a movie or a show that doesn't have any emotion in it. Isn't that why you watch it? So it pulls on your emotions? Mm-hmm. Right. So no, it's not a maturity thing. It's how they were created. Okay. So with pearls, I think one of the biggest things, and Michelle has been my biggest pearl friend because she's a healthy pearl, and I can ask her questions, and she helps me understand the enigma of the pearl. So we basically put it this way. Pearls, give yourself permission to set healthy boundaries, especially when you feel like you're being taken advantage of. Realize that it is impossible to make everyone happy. They just want to make people happy, right? They love people. They want to make people happy. That's their goal. And I guess it's like the maturity in that is saying, I can't make everyone happy. It's not possible. Now, as a logical person, I absolutely know that. As a sapphire person, I think that I worked really, really hard to make people happy that didn't want to be my friends anyway. right? Has anybody done that, changed yourself for a group of friends because you thought it was going to make them happy? Yeah.
Okay, and as a pearl in that, because I'm pearl sapphire,
Yes, you are.
I have found myself wanting to figure out how to make somebody happy and realize I don't even want to be their friend. So why do I care?
What's the point?
But I really had to process that fact. Because
Right. She gave herself permission to right. But they automatically it's in there. It's a trigger. It's an automatic thing. It's nothing that God put it in there. It's not a bad thing. It's just realizing having boundaries, the same as Ruby having boundaries, realizing you don't have to do everything. Just because you're talented and you can pick something up, read the instructions and do it really quick, doesn't mean you should do it.
correct.
It's okay. So if you've ever, so one of the things that can happen, it doesn't really happen with like Ruby parents unless they're like broken and yeah. But what they'll end up doing is they'll end up doing everything for their kids, and then their kids never learn how to do anything.
Helicopter parents.
And so, unfortunately, what is that saying? If you teach a man to fish, he'll feed himself for the rest of his life, right?
So is that because they want it all
Perfect.
perfect or don't have the patience for that?
Perfect, don't have the patience, want their kids, or they're like reenacting their life through their kids, in some aspects. Like, so when the Bible talks about brokenness, where they talk about like having a shattered heart, so that can come from sin nature. It can come from a generational sin, or it can come from, trauma, tragedy. It could come from being in a hurricane and thinking you're going to die. It could be in I had a friend her and her husband were in this airplane and they got stuck in a turbulence like hurricane, and their plane like did barrel rolls and they thought they were going to die. Yeah, no, like they were like flipping, man. They were God. Great pilot. I don't know, but it was very traumatic for them. And so then what does it do? Some people won't ever get on a plane again, right? So when we talk about brokenness, usually something comes in, and I usually like to, I feel like there's shame, fear, control. Fear has many faces. Very, very chameleon-like. It pops up everywhere. It's like a shapeshifter. And in any place, the enemy's goal is to either make you feel fearful, is to make you feel shameful, or to think that you need to control things. Because the truth is, it's not about control, because God's in control, right? That's what he says. We get to make choices on what that is. So you can either choose to believe that God is in control and to let things go, or you can try to control it and then go around that mountain how many times? I don't know. It's up to you. That's your choice. So when it comes to control, it's a decision. It's a choice. Same thing with fear and shame. But sometimes a lot of times the reason why we try to control things, right, is because maybe somebody attacked us, right? And so now we're trying to control the way we travel, control the way we do all these things, or I'm not going to go to certain places. Like, let's just say, for instance, in my 20s, I went to Mexico with a girlfriend and her brother, and we went on this like bar hopping tour, and they left early because he got like sun poisoning or something like that. He was really sick. And so she's like, I'm going to take him back and then I'll meet up with you, blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't know. I ended up missing my bus. The bus left and I didn't get on it. I was in the bathroom. And the reason why I was in the bathroom is because there were a lot of drunk guys trying to pour tequila shots down girls' throats. And I don't drink tequila. So I was like, yeah, because we were all hanging out with these people on this tour. And then all of a sudden I didn't feel safe anymore. So, I backed away and I was like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. And I was like, I'll just stay in here until the bus leaves to control my situation, right? And then I came out and I was like, oh my gosh, I missed the bus. And I don't remember how or why. I only had enough money to get on a bus to get back to my hotel. And then as I was coming out of the club, this giant Mexican guy comes up behind me and grabs me and tries to put me in a car. Luckily, he was dealing with a girl who grew up with all brothers. And I kicked the living daylights out of him and elbowed my way out of that. It was in front of a ton of people, and I was screaming my head off. And everybody was just like this. So, when it comes to Mexico, I get a little bit anxiety about going back in because it's unsafe, right? That's what it says to me. It's unsafe for you here. Something always happens. Went through Mexico one time, and everybody got to go through this lane, and then they took me in the airport to another lane, and all of a sudden my video iPod is missing, and I'm like, what the heck? Why do I always get... So you start, right? There's fear there. This is the brokenness, right? There's fear there. And so because I'm scared or I have trauma that never got healed, it's healed now, but it never got healed. So now I'm living in the enemy's language, right? Fear. I'm scared here. And I could have chosen to pray my spirit language, which I didn't. I could have just said, you know what, Lord, you're in complete control and I trust you in this. And I have forgiven everybody who had attacked me or who had left me, who made me feel abandoned in this situation, but I didn't do any of that. I hadn't done that yet. So there was a choice. I bet if I had done that, it would have been a completely different situation the second time that I went back. The third time I went back, I had anxiety all of a sudden. Everything was like, you can't wear that. Why? Because it brings attention to us, And then in that moment, the Lord helped me realize what was going on. And he's like, you have trauma. You have brokenness. You're broken in that place. You think that every time you go, something bad's going to happen to you. And because you think that, and you're controlling it, not me, not God, you're giving the enemy permission to let it happen again and again and again and again. And that's what he wants. So when I talk about this brokenness, and I talk about, getting healed from traumatic situations, or you could have had a parent or a sibling that called you stupid all the time. Do you know that it only takes 3 or 4 times for someone to call you stupid that you start believing it? It takes a few times. And then what happens is the enemy keeps putting these situations kind of similar. So it's like the same type of thing, right? Same type of look. And then all of a sudden you're like, why does this stuff keep happening to me? What's wrong with me, right? And then we get stuck in these places, and then we get fearful, and then we get scared, or we're ashamed of what happened to us and we don't want to talk about it. And then we respond out of those places, and we allow the enemy to cause havoc in our lives. We allow it. Not God, we. Okay.
Which makes us unhealthy in the way we communicate sometimes.
Yes. Should you hear that? Which makes us unhealthy in the way that we communicate sometimes.
Because we are operating
We're,
in control,
yep.
am I right?
We're operating in that control place. Yeah. But the good news is, it's so easy to get free. It's so easy to get free. Sometimes getting free is just confessing or talking about the situation with a good friend, and they pray for you. I mean, Scripture says if you confess with your mouth and you ask for forgiveness, you'll be free indeed. And when we're releasing forgiveness, I had to release and forgive my friend and the Hispanic guy who grabbed me. And I had to say to myself, I have no idea how he grew up. I have no idea what he went through in order to be the person he is today. Wow, he's really broken. I don't think that's who he wants to be, but he's stuck. Because he doesn't believe that there's a way out. The enemy had control. So, right, when we're going through all this stuff, we're not, when you come up against brokenness or the way that, maybe somebody rubs you the wrong way, just remember this. Sometimes they don't communicate the same way that you do because God created them differently, but also we're not dealing and judging people. This present darkness, this is principalities. You got to separate the two. In every situation, you got to separate the two. And kick that devil in the booty and love the person that God created them to be. That is the best thing that you can do. Okay. Where do we want to go next? Does anybody have a question?
Yes, I have a question.
Good.
The rubies and the emeralds,
Yeah.
is there an emotional side to them as opposed to the, strictly logical, emotional categories? I'm thinking that there's some emotional component.
There is.
Okay.
So just because someone's logical doesn't mean they don't have any emotions. It just means maybe they don't cry as long as some emotionals do.
And then they don't make any decisions from that.
They also, yeah, that's very true. They don't make decisions from their emotions.
Okay.
Because emotions are triggers that something is wrong. And a lot of times what happens I'm not an overly, I'm balanced. I'm both logical and emotional. I know that my emotions, so in the past, if I was to say this, where I have matured, but I'm also both, so I just balanced the two. What I've learned is that my emotions are triggers telling me that something is wrong, but I don't make decisions out of those places. Now, I've made lots of horrible decisions out of my emotions. Yeah. For example, I'll give you an example. Have you ever gotten in a fight with somebody, like maybe your best friend or something like that, and you guys say a bunch of horrible things because, your emotions are going high or whatever? And so then you go home and it's like, oh, I can't believe so-and-so this, and you keep replaying it over and over and over and over and over in your head. And well, if it went like this, I would have said this. And if it went like that, and I would have said that. And so sometimes what happens is especially an extrovert, emotional, will call that person and then tell them all the things that just played in their head out of their emotions, which makes the situation worse. Instead of, the logical thing is to lay those at God's feet and get understanding from Him first, because our mouths are weapons. So this is why it's so important that we learn how to communicate to how people respond to their world, because our mouths are weapons. We can either be a blessing or we can be a curse.
Right.
There's nothing in between. So we have to be really careful about what we're saying to people. Okay. I don't even know why I'm going to, we kind of went through all this other stuff. Is there any other questions? Because unless I want to get deep into depth with things, which I don't think we're doing, yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have time.
There's a test that you could do this online.
No. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay. You're a sapphire.
Through and through.
Through and through.
Sapphire pearl.
You're a sapphire pearl, yeah.
Miserable. No.
You are one of the most joyous people I know. So I wouldn't say that that's horrible, because most people wish that they lived in that kind of joy.
It's hard around people who aren't close, who are emerald and ruby.
Because?
They shoot me down a lot. Try to shove me in their little box.
They try to put her in the rules, and she doesn't play by the rules.
I broke that box in a counseling session, and now it's like God's given me limitless now.
Wow.
So now, yeah. It's good,
Right.
but it's.
Can you
hard.
see how that, can you see? That's her basically sharing her heart for those who tend to be on the more logical side, and she's an emotional. You can't put them in boxes. And the reality of the situation is they will make their own decisions, and sometimes they have to hit rock bottom in order to make that decision, but it's not yours to make. And that's what happens because logicals are like, can't you just see it? It's right here. You can just do it. It's right here. And they're like, but I don't like that box. It looks stuffy in there. Like, I don't think I can move. It's not pretty. You didn't put any sparkles on it. And so therefore I don't like you. And you just made me feel horrible. That's really how they feel. And so it's really about like giving them an idea, asking them some open-ended questions. They will give you the answer. They might not give it to you right away. Why? Because they're thinking thoughts and spinning and doing all these things and they're checking with all their emotional things. It takes them a while. Whereas if you were, this is why they don't work the stock market. Could you imagine? Should I? Shouldn't I? Should I? I don't know. Oh, I missed it. I would have made so much money right then.
That's great.
That's a great, or there's a better place for
Right?
that butterfly.
And you're not going to see. And like, okay, so like when I said, when I was talking about emeralds on part one, and I was saying, they make great teachers. They really, really do make great teachers. But that's when they're teaching things that are logical. Now, there are some really great teachers that are art teachers and drama teachers, but they're teaching from an emotional place. Does that make sense? It's a creativity place. It's a creative place. Actually, a lot of English teachers are usually emotionals because English can be creative, like creative writing and all that stuff.
Which gem is that? Would that be sapphire? Is there
Well, sapphire pearls. I can guarantee you that there's probably not many just sapphire ruby teachers out there, but there's probably, Donut is. But
There's a lot of Ruby Sapphire teachers.
is there?
I like to teach.
Yeah.
But I always scored low in all of the teacher things and every, the spiritual gifting things. And so I was trying to figure out why. And it's because the emerald likes to teach out of the information and they like to research and it's amazing. I like to teach because I like the interaction with people. And
Teachers and preachers.
it's fun.
Yeah.
And when I'm teaching something I love, it's really fun.
Right?
And it was funny to realize I scored low in everything about teachers, but I love to teach because it's about the being motivated by people and being motivated by fun.
Right. Exactly. So you can always, I'm not saying that not every, there can be a sapphire pearl on the stock exchange because they can learn, you can learn anything. You can discipline yourself into anything. You really can. The only reason why we're teaching you this stuff is so that you can help you recognize people so that your words are blessings and not curses. We're not here to destroy one another. We're here to build each other up. We're here to connect as the body of Christ. We're here to save the world from this present darkness and give them a hope and introduce them to Jesus, the light of the world, that we're here to pray for them, right? I remember I said something to my brother, a bass player, very Ruby, very. And I said it to him so direct. The rest of my family was like, wow, that was really harsh. Why did you say it like that? Later on, I found out that he actually followed that direction because he realized it was good for him. They just take discipline well. Because if it makes sense, they're going to do it. Whereas if you said that to an emotional, they would be like, why did they say that to me like that? They must hate me. That was like the worst experience ever. And then all of a sudden, their feelings start getting hurt, and it's horrible. And they're thinking, like, why couldn't they just said it in a nicer way? Like, I totally would have listened if they would have just said it to me in a nicer way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand why they would have said it that harsh. And so I think that's kind of what we're getting at is, and then also, as we grow, like, give grace, right? As a family, give grace for people who might come at you a little harsh, or people who want to tell long stories, or, you know, maybe they're being a little too emotional for you. But I think the idea here is that we just want to give each other grace, and like exactly like what Kim was saying is that when I first started teaching this, I taught the women's group over at the Generals years ago, and it was mainly for their leadership group. And the idea is that I know Michelle. I know Michelle loves me. So whatever comes out of her, regardless if it's tainted a little bit or if it's completely God-driven, right? I know her heart for me, so I'm not going to get offended.
Always choose that first. Yeah.
Always, that is maturity, is just look at a person and say, you know what? I know that they love me. That just came out a little, they must have been having a bad day. They spilt their coffee on their lap. They had to change their favorite pair of pants. They got toothpaste in their hair. I don't know. You know, maybe they're having a bad day. Sometimes when we're having a bad day, things don't come out great. I have this friend she's very emotional. And when she always has like stuff going on with her family. And so she'll send me these like super long texts of like all of her emotion. And then I will text her back like 3 sentences, say it like this. And she'll be like, thank you so much. Because the text that she sends me is just like vomit. It's just a vomit of emotions. It's all over the place. A lot of it's not nice because her feelings are hurt. But the mature thing to do is to get all those things out and then to say it in a I like to say it like, how would a lawyer say it, right? That's just how I think. I don't know why. But I think about how would a lawyer say this so that, or an HR person. HR is better. An HR person.
They're evil.
I don't think HR people are evil.
They gotta stay in ocean.
Yeah, they have to stay in this little, like, you know, this box of, you know, how can I say this in a nice way, but yet still tell somebody that what you did was wrong, and how can we fix this? I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a smart thing.
I'm just talking a political.
Oh, so I think it's a good thing. So if we can stay in that, like, even though we have lots of emotions and you're not able to get those mature sentences out, then, you know, text somebody who can help you do that. That way you can get it, or call and get it all out, and then just say, this is how you should say it. Because you don't want to burn your bridges with your family. And if you're trying to be the Christian you say you are, you got to walk like it, you got to talk like it, or they're not going to respect you. Because your yes isn't yes and your no isn't no. And that is the issue with the body of Christ today.